Maya Chen sat in the third row of the Comparative Combat Theory lecture hall, her stylus hovering over her datapad as Professor Thelrax droned on about military doctrine. The Vornathi professor, a being that resembled a floating collection of crystalline structures, projected holographic images of various battles across the galaxy's history. As you can observe, Thelrax's translated voice echoed through the chamber. In every recorded conflict, superior physical strength has determined the victor. The Corinthian Dominion's military success stems directly from their biological advantages. Denser bone structure, natural armor plating, and muscle mass 3 times that of comparable species make them undefeatable in individual combat. Maya's hand shot up before she could stop herself. Around her, alien students shifted in their seats. Most species at Kepler Station Academy had learned that the small human exchange student asked uncomfortable questions. Yes, Student Chen? The professor's crystals dimmed slightly, showing what Maya had learned was irritation. That's not entirely accurate, Professor. Maya kept her voice respectful but firm. History shows numerous examples where superior tactics, environmental adaptation, and psychological resilience defeated physically superior opponents. The Battle of Thermopylae, the Winter War, guerrilla tactics throughout human history. Physical strength is just one variable in combat effectiveness. The lecture hall fell silent. Maya could feel dozens of alien eyes on her. She was one of only 15 humans at the prestigious academy, and moments like this reminded her how alone that made her. Student Chen, with respect to your limited planetary perspective, you are discussing primitive conflicts among a single species. Thelrax's crystals pulsed with what might have been condescension. In galactic warfare, biological superiority is the determining factor. Your species has no military history against true warrior races. Before Maya could respond, a deep, rumbling voice cut through the room. Perhaps the human needs a practical demonstration. Maya turned to see Vector rising from his seat near the back. The Corinthian towered over every other student, his 7-foot frame covered in emerald scales that gleamed under the lecture hall's lights. His eyes, golden with vertical slits, fixed on Maya with predatory intensity. The human questions Corinthian supremacy, Vector continued, his clawed hands flexing. She speaks of tactics and psychology as if they matter against true strength. This is an insult to warrior traditions spanning millennia. Student Vector, please sit down, Professor Thelrax said, though the crystals showed interest rather than concern. This is a theoretical discussion. No. Vector descended the steps toward Maya's row, each footfall heavy enough to vibrate through the floor. This human dishonors my people with her words. I invoke the right of educational demonstration under Station Code 73. I challenge Student Chen to unarmed combat in the Academy arena. Maya's heart hammered in her chest, but she forced herself to remain still. Around the lecture hall, students erupted into excited chatter. Some species hissed, others made sounds she couldn't interpret. But the meaning was clear. This was serious. That is highly irregular, Thelrax said, crystals spinning rapidly. Perhaps we should involve the Dean. Station law is clear. Vector stopped 3 rows from Maya, close enough that she had to crane her neck to meet his gaze. An educational demonstration can be invoked when a student's statements contradict established martial fact. The challenged party may accept or decline. However, declining brings dishonor to their entire species standing in the collective. Maya felt her stomach drop. She knew enough about galactic politics to understand what Vector meant. Humanity was still applying for full membership in the Galactic Collective. Earth had been granted provisional status only 5 years ago. Every human in the galaxy was essentially an ambassador, and their actions reflected on their entire species. If she refused, it would be recorded that humanity backed down from a direct challenge. In a galaxy where dozens of warrior cultures held significant political power, that could doom Earth's application. Trade agreements, technology exchanges, everything humanity had worked for could be jeopardized. If she accepted, she would face a Corinthian warrior in single combat. Corinthians were legendary. Their homeworld had gravity 1.8 times Earth's. They had natural weapons and armor. They had been bred by their environment to be perfect fighters. Maya had seen recordings of Corinthian combat sports. They fought with devastating speed and strength that shattered reinforced materials. She was 5'6", weighed 130 pounds, and her only combat experience was 3 years of judo in high school, and the basic self-defense course all human exchange students received before leaving Earth. "Student Chen?" Felrax prompted. "What is your response?" Maya stood slowly. Her legs felt unsteady, but she locked her knees and met Vector's gaze. The Corinthian's mouth opened slightly, showing rows of serrated teeth in what might have been a smile. "I accept the challenge," Maya said. Her voice sounded calmer than she felt. "Under Station Code 7-3, unarmed combat, first to yield or incapacitation." The lecture hall exploded with noise. Students of every species talked over each other. Maya caught fragments of conversation in a dozen languages, her translator struggling to keep up. Insane, the human must be. Never seen a species accept suicide so calmly. A Corinthian will break her in seconds. Vector's smile widened. 3 days from now, the main arena. Witness combat, recorded for the Academy archives. He turned his back on her, a gesture of dismissal in Corinthian culture. "Prepare yourself, human. I will show the galaxy why strength matters above all else." As Vector left the lecture hall, Professor Felrax's crystals swirled in complex patterns. "Class dismissed. Student Chen, please remain." The other students filed out, many casting glances at Maya that ranged from pity to morbid curiosity. When the hall emptied, Felrax descended from the teaching platform. "That was either very brave or very foolish," the professor said quietly. "Do you understand what you have done?" "I understand that I didn't have a choice," Maya replied. "Not really." "No, I suppose you did not." Felrax's crystals dimmed with something that might have been sympathy. "The challenge is legal and binding. The station authorities will provide medical teams. But Student Chen, you should know that Corinthian demonstrations are rarely gentle. Vector comes from a military family. He has trained in combat since he was old enough to stand." "I know." Maya gathered her datapad and belongings with hands that only trembled slightly. "Can I ask you something, Professor?" "Of course. Do you actually believe that physical strength always wins, or were you just teaching the standard curriculum?" Felrax was silent for a long moment. The crystals pulsed in patterns Maya couldn't read. "I believe," the professor finally said, "that the universe often surprises us. I also believe you should visit the medical center and ensure your affairs are in order. 3 days is not much time." Maya nodded and left the lecture hall. The corridor outside was packed with students who hadn't bothered to hide their curiosity. She pushed through the crowd, ignoring questions and comments, until she reached the observation deck overlooking Kepler Station's central hub. Through the transparent aluminum, she could see hundreds of ships docked at the massive orbital platform. Somewhere out there, 93 million miles away, was Earth. A planet that was counting on her and 14 other students to represent humanity well. Maya pulled out her communicator and sent a message to the other human students. They needed to know what had happened. Then she opened a second channel to Earth, composing a message to the diplomatic corps that would take hours to reach home. As she typed, Maya caught her reflection in the observation window. She looked small and fragile against the backdrop of the station. Compared to most species here, she was small and fragile. But humans had survived ice ages and predators and diseases and wars and 1,000 other things that should have killed them. They had survived because they were too stubborn to die and too clever to fight fair. Maya finished her message and headed toward her dormitory. She had 3 days to figure out how to beat a Corinthian warrior in single combat. 3 days to prove that humanity belonged in the galaxy. 3 days to make sure that accepting this challenge wasn't the last mistake she ever made. The message from Maya hit the human student community like a shockwave. Within an hour, all 15 humans on Kepler Station had gathered in the common room of their shared dormitory section, voices overlapping in panic and disbelief. "This is insane," Marcus Webb, a physics major, paced back and forth across the room. "You can't fight a Corinthian. They're built like living tanks." "She has to fight him," Sarah Kim said quietly from her seat by the window. She already accepted. Station law doesn't allow withdrawal from an educational demonstration. Maya sat at the center table, surrounded by datapads displaying everything the station's library had on Corinthian biology, culture, and combat history. She had been reading for 3 hours straight, her eyes burning from screen fatigue, but she couldn't stop. Every piece of information might be the difference between survival and a hospital bed, or worse. "There has to be a way out of this," Jamal Okonkwo insisted. He was the oldest human student at 26, studying interspecies law. A technicality, a loophole, something. "I've checked." Maya didn't look up from her reading. "Station code 73 is airtight. The only way out is to yield before the fight starts, which carries the same dishonor as refusing the challenge. Either way, it goes on humanity's record." "So what?" Marcus threw his hands up. "Your life is worth more than some political points." "Is it?" Maya finally met his eyes. "If I back down, every species in the collective sees that humans fold under pressure. Earth's application for full membership gets delayed, maybe denied. The trade agreements we have become harder to maintain. Other humans face more challenges because we're seen as weak. How many lives does that affect, Marcus?" "Billions." The room fell silent. They all knew she was right. Every human who left Earth carried the weight of their entire species on their shoulders. It was why they had been selected so carefully, trained so thoroughly, before being sent to Kepler Station. "Then we help you prepare," Sarah said firmly. "We have 3 days. What do you need?" Maya pulled up a holographic display from her datapad, showing a rotating image of Corinthian anatomy. "Everything we can learn about how to beat something that's stronger, faster, and better armored than me." Over the next 2 hours, the human students worked together, each contributing what they could. Marcus accessed physics databases to calculate force vectors and impact points. Sarah used her xenobiology background to analyze Corinthian physiology. Jamal dug through historical records of every species conflict he could find. What they discovered wasn't encouraging. Corinthians came from Corinth Prime, a heavy-gravity world with dangerous megafauna. They had evolved as apex predators. Their scales provided natural armor comparable to Kevlar. Their bone density was 3 times human standard. Their muscle fibers were more efficient, generating enormous force with minimal energy expenditure. In recorded combat sports, Corinthian matches lasted an average of 43 seconds. They fought with overwhelming aggression, using their natural advantages to end fights quickly. No other species had ever defeated a Corinthian in unarmed one-on-one combat in Academy records. "There has to be something," Maya muttered, scrolling through her 12th article on Corinthian military history. "No species is invincible. They have to have a weakness." "Their eyes," Sarah said suddenly. She pulled up a detailed anatomical scan. "Look, they have nictitating membranes, like Earth reptiles. It's a third eyelid that protects the eye during combat, but there's a split-second delay when it closes. And the eyes themselves, underneath the membrane, they're vulnerable. No armor there. Great, Marcus said. So if Maya can somehow reach up 7 feet and hit a moving target smaller than a coin, while the Corinthian is trying to crush her skull, she might temporarily blind him. That helps how? It's something. Maya leaned forward, studying the scan. What else? They worked through the night. Maya learned that Corinthian scales, while tough, had gaps at the joints where flexibility was necessary. She learned that their culture valued direct, honorable combat above all else, which meant they rarely trained against unconventional tactics. She learned that their homeworld's predators were large and dangerous, but slow compared to Earth's apex hunters. Corinthians had evolved to fight threats that matched their strength. They had never evolved to fight something like a persistence predator. At 3 a.m, Maya accessed Earth's historical database, calling up files that most of the other students had never bothered to read. Human military history. Not the sanitized version taught in galactic academies, but the real thing. Thousands of years of humans fighting each other with every dirty trick, psychological game, and tactical innovation they could devise. What are you looking for? Sarah asked, bringing Maya another cup of coffee. Asymmetric warfare, Maya replied. Times when the physically weaker side won against superior opponents. Vietnam, Afghanistan, guerrilla tactics. How to beat someone bigger and stronger when you can't match their power. She found case studies of smaller martial artists defeating larger opponents. She found analyses of how humans use tool use, environmental awareness, and tactical thinking to survive against predators that should have eaten them. She found psychological profiles of what happened when a fighter trained for quick victories faced an opponent who simply refused to stop. As dawn broke over Kepler Station, painting the common room in artificial orange light, Maya had the beginnings of a plan. I can't beat him in a straight fight, she said, gathering the other humans around her. If I try to match his strength or fight the way he expects, he'll destroy me in seconds. But humans have advantages that Corinthians don't. Like what? Jamal asked skeptically. We're slower, weaker, less armored. We're persistence predators, Maya interrupted. On Earth, humans hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We can regulate our body temperature through sweating. We can keep going when other species quit. And we evolved fighting everything from lions to each other. We learned to think tactically, to use our environment, to adapt. She pulled up comparative studies. Corinthians have lower pain tolerance than humans because they evolved with natural armor. They rarely get hurt, so they're not used to fighting through injury. Their combat doctrine emphasizes overwhelming force because that's what works for them. But I don't have to beat him with force. I just have to last longer than he expects and make him doubt himself. You're talking about a war of attrition, Marcus said slowly, against someone who can probably end the fight with one good hit. That's why I don't let him land one good hit. Maya stood, rolling her shoulders. Not to fight like a Corinthian, but to fight like a human. Endurance, evasion, precision strikes to vulnerable targets, and psychological warfare. Psychological warfare? Sarah raised an eyebrow. Corinthians fight for honor and glory. It's cultural. They expect opponents to be afraid, to be desperate, to panic. Maya's expression hardened. I'm going to treat this like a laboratory experiment, clinical, analytical. I'm going to study him while we fight, and that's going to mess with his head. Over the next 3 days, Maya trained harder than she had in her life. She didn't try to build muscle or practice devastating strikes. Instead, she worked on endurance, running until her lungs burned, and then running more. She practiced evasion drills, dodging thrown objects while maintaining balance. She studied human martial arts footage, focusing on styles that used an opponent's momentum against them. Marcus used his physics knowledge to help her understand leverage and force distribution. Sarah drilled her on Corinthian anatomy, making her memorize every vulnerable point. Jamal researched Corinthian cultural psychology, helping her understand what would frustrate or unnerve Vector. News of the challenge spread throughout the station. Betting pools opened with odds of 500 to 1 against Maya. Some species protested to the Academy administration that the fight shouldn't be allowed due to the obvious mismatch. Others saw it as an opportunity to see human fragility demonstrated conclusively. The Corinthian student population treated it as a celebration. Vector was already a respected figure among them, and this was his chance to prove Corinthian superiority to the entire station. They held traditional pre-combat rituals in his honor. Meanwhile, Maya spent hours in the station's medical database, learning exactly how much damage a human body could take and still function. She studied pain management techniques. She practiced maintaining mental focus while experiencing physical discomfort, having Sarah apply pressure to bruises and sore muscles, while Maya recited Corinthian anatomical weaknesses. On the final night before the fight, Maya sat alone in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Her body ached from training. Her mind was crammed with tactical information, and she was terrified in a way she had never been before. But she was also ready. She had accepted that she would be hurt tomorrow, probably badly. But she had also accepted that pain was just information, injury was just a problem to solve, and fear was just a chemical reaction she could choose to ignore. Somewhere in the station, Vector was probably confident, probably celebrating his coming victory with his friends. He saw this as a formality, a chance to prove what everyone already believed. Maya had a different perspective. Tomorrow, she would show the galaxy what humans were really made of. The combat arena occupied an entire deck of Kepler Station, a massive circular space with energy shielding to protect spectators and recording equipment positioned at every angle. Maya had never seen it so crowded. Thousands of alien beings packed the observation rings, representing dozens of species from across the galaxy. The air hummed with translated voices in hundreds of languages, all speculating about the coming fight. Maya stood in the preparation room beneath the arena floor, wearing simple gray athletic clothing designed for maximum mobility. The Academy medical team had already scanned her and attached monitoring devices that would track her vital signs throughout the fight. They would intervene only if she lost consciousness or suffered life-threatening injury. Everything else was considered acceptable under the rules of educational demonstration. "You can still forfeit," the Vornathi medic said gently. The crystalline being pulsed with concerned colors. "There is no shame in acknowledging a biological mismatch." "There's plenty of shame in it," Maya replied quietly. "Just not the kind you're thinking of." Through the preparation room's display screen, she could see the human section of the audience. All 14 of her fellow students sat together, their faces tight with worry. Behind them, she knew Earth's diplomatic corps was watching via live feed, 93 million miles away. Every human in the galaxy would see this fight. What happened here would define how their species was perceived for years to come. The door opened and Sarah stepped in, having talked her way past security. She carried a small medical kit and a bottle of water. "Last chance for advice," Sarah said, opening the kit to reveal quick seal bandages and stimulant injectors, all legal under station combat rules. "Tell me something true," Maya said, taking a long drink of water. "No optimism, no encouragement, just the truth." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "The truth is that you're probably going to get hurt badly. Corinthians are built for combat in a way humans aren't. But the truth is also that humans are built to survive things that should kill them, and you're one of the smartest people I know. If anyone can find a way through this, it's you." "That'll have to be enough." Maya handed back the water bottle. Is Vector here yet? He entered through the main arena 10 minutes ago. The Corinthian delegation gave him some kind of ceremonial blessing. He looks confident. Very confident. Good. Confident people make mistakes. The announcement system crackled to life throughout the arena. Combatants prepare for entry. Demonstration will commence in 5 minutes. Maya closed her eyes and ran through everything she had learned one more time. Corinthian anatomy, vulnerable points, cultural psychology, human advantages, tactical priorities. She visualized the fight not as a battle, but as a problem with multiple variables that needed to be solved sequentially. Maya. Sarah gripped her shoulder. Remember, you don't have to win. You just have to not lose. There's a difference? Yeah. Winning means beating him. Not losing means lasting long enough to make everyone rethink what humans are capable of. That's victory enough. The floor beneath Maya began to rise, the platform lifting her toward the arena level. Sarah stepped back as the ceiling opened above, revealing the massive space beyond. The roar of the crowd washed over Maya like a physical force. The arena floor was sand, 40 meters in diameter, surrounded by energy barriers. Lighting arrays focused on the combat area, leaving no shadows. Recording drones hovered at various heights, capturing every angle for the Academy archives and the live feeds broadcasting throughout the station. Across the arena, another platform rose, carrying Vector. The Corinthian looked magnificent in a terrifying way. His emerald scales had been polished until they gleamed like metal. He wore traditional combat wrappings around his hands and feet, minimal clothing that showed his muscular physique. At 7 feet tall with a build like a professional heavyweight fighter, he dominated the space. His golden eyes locked onto Maya with predatory focus. The crowd's noise reached a crescendo. Maya could hear different reactions from different species. Corinthians roared approval for their champion. Some species made sounds of pity. Others remained silent, waiting to see what would happen. The referee, a neutral Deltharian who floated on anti-gravity generators, positioned itself at the arena's center. Its synthesized voice projected throughout the space. Educational demonstration under station code 73. Combatants, Vector of Corinth Prime, Student Chen of Earth. Rules: unarmed combat, first to yield or incapacitation, medical intervention for life-threatening injury only. Victory brings honor, defeat brings wisdom. Let all who witness learn. Maya stepped forward to the marked circle at the arena's edge. Vector did the same, from his side. They stood 10 meters apart. Any final words? The referee asked. Vector's voice boomed across the arena. I will be merciful, human. Yield quickly, and the pain will be brief. Every eye turned to Maya. She could feel the weight of their expectations. Most expected her to show fear, to make some desperate plea or brave declaration. Instead, she kept her voice calm and clinical. Your nictitating membrane has a 12-millisecond reflex delay. The gaps in your scale armor at the elbow joint represent a 23% reduction in structural integrity. Your combat stance suggests you favor your right side by approximately 7 degrees. The arena went silent. Vector's eyes widened slightly. Maya had just stated she had studied him like a laboratory specimen. Begin, the referee announced, retreating to the arena's edge. Vector charged immediately, exactly as Maya had predicted. Corinthian combat doctrine favored overwhelming aggression. He closed the 10-meter gap in less than 2 seconds, his clawed hands reaching to grapple her. Maya didn't try to block or counter. She dropped low and rolled left, using the sand to accelerate her movement. Vector's hands closed on empty air where she had been standing a split second before. The crowd gasped, not because the evasion was particularly impressive, but because Maya had moved with precision rather than panic. She came up from her roll in a ready stance, her eyes already tracking Vector's next move. The Corinthian spun faster than something his size should be able to move, his tail whipping around at knee height. Maya jumped, the scaled appendage passing beneath her feet with centimeters to spare. She landed and immediately retreated, maintaining distance. "Stand still," Vector snarled, frustration already creeping into his voice. Maya didn't respond. She was counting his movements, timing his attacks, studying how he compensated for her evasions. 30 seconds passed. 45. A minute. Vector landed several glancing blows, but nothing solid. Maya stayed mobile, defensive, conserving energy. The crowd's mood shifted. This wasn't the quick victory they had expected. Some species began making sounds of interest, rather than pity. Vector changed tactics, feinting left before attacking right. The move was skillful, and Maya couldn't evade completely. His clawed hand caught her shoulder, not a full strike, but enough to tear her clothing and draw blood. Maya gasped at the pain, but converted it to motion, using the impact's force to spin away and create distance. "First blood to Vector," the referee announced. Maya touched her shoulder, her hand coming away red. The wound wasn't deep, but it hurt. She processed the pain, categorized it, and set it aside. Just information. Just data. "You should yield now," Vector called across the arena. "I do not wish to truly hurt you." Maya met his eyes. Her expression wasn't afraid or angry. It was analytical. She was looking at him the way a scientist looked at an interesting specimen, and something about that gaze made Vector uncomfortable. She moved forward for the first time since the fight began. Not retreating, but advancing. Vector responded instinctively, launching a powerful straight punch aimed at her center mass. Maya waited until the last possible moment, then shifted her weight and redirected his arm past her body using his own momentum. As he stumbled slightly off balance, she struck. Not a powerful blow, but a precise one. Her fingers jabbed at his eye, targeting the gap in his nictitating membrane. Vector's head jerked back reflexively, and Maya was already retreating before he could counterattack. The Corinthian touched his eye. No real damage, but the shock was visible on his face. She had struck him. The human had actually landed a hit. "Interesting," Maya said quietly, her voice barely audible over the crowd. Reflex time slower than predicted. Updating tactical model. She was talking to herself, analyzing the fight in real time, like it was an experiment. And that clinical detachment unsettled Vector more than any battle cry could have. The Corinthian warrior realized this fight wasn't going to end the way he had planned. The human wasn't fighting like prey. She was fighting like a predator who had chosen her hunting ground carefully. And the hunt had only just begun. 2 minutes into the fight, Vector's frustration was visible. He had trained his entire life for combat, had won dozens of matches in traditional Corinthian tournaments, and yet he couldn't land a solid hit on the small human dancing just outside his reach. Maya's shoulder burned where his claws had torn her skin, but she pushed the pain into the background. Blood soaked her shirt, but the wound wasn't debilitating. She could still move. That was all that mattered. "Stop running!" Vector roared, his tail lashing in agitation. In Corinthian culture, prolonged evasion was seen as cowardice. He expected Maya to be ashamed. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, like a researcher observing an interesting behavior. "You're breathing harder. Oxygen efficiency down approximately 18%. Expected, given your higher muscle mass." The crowd murmured. Many aliens had never heard someone narrate a fight like a scientific observation. In the human section, Sarah gripped Marcus's arm. "She's getting in his head," she whispered. Vector abandoned his measured approach and attacked with pure aggression. He was faster than before, anger fueling his movements. His clawed hand swept in a wide arc that Maya couldn't fully avoid. She tried to duck, but wasn't quite fast enough. The impact caught her across the ribs. The force lifted Maya off her feet and sent her tumbling across the sand. She heard something crack in her chest, felt a sharp pain that made breathing difficult. The crowd roared at the first significant strike. Maya forced herself to roll with the momentum rather than fight it, coming up on her knees several meters away. She pressed a hand to her side, feeling gingerly. At least one broken rib, maybe two. Every breath sent pain lancing through her torso. "Yield, human," Vector called out, standing tall in the center of the arena. "You fought well, but this is over." Maya slowly pushed herself to her feet. Her vision swam briefly from the pain, but she blinked it away. She looked down at her injured side, then back at Vector. Her expression didn't show pain or fear, it showed calculation. "Interesting," she said, loud enough for the recording equipment to catch. "Impact force suggests 62% power. You're still holding back. Cultural conditioning against harming perceived weaker opponents." She straightened, despite the pain. "That's a tactical error." Vector's eyes widened. She was injured, possibly seriously, and she was still analyzing him like a test subject. The psychological impact was profound. He had expected tears or surrender. Instead, the human was lecturing him on his fighting technique while bleeding. Maya moved forward again. Her gait was slightly different now, favoring her injured side, but she didn't stop. Vector attacked again. A powerful straight kick aimed at her center mass. Maya sidestepped, grabbed his extended leg with both hands, and twisted hard at the knee joint, where the scales were thinnest. She didn't have the strength to damage him, but the unexpected pressure on a vulnerable point made Vector pull back reflexively. As he did, Maya used his own retraction to power a strike at his throat, another unarmored area. Her fist connected just below his jaw. The strike wouldn't have hurt a human much, but Corinthians weren't used to being hit in vulnerable spots. Vector staggered back, more shocked than injured, his hand going to his throat. "You fight dirty," he accused. "I fight effectively." Maya circled him slowly. "Humans don't have armor or natural weapons. We learn to target the places that do hurt. Every species has vulnerabilities, Vector. You just never needed to protect yours before." She was right, and they both knew it. Corinthian combat training focused on overpowering opponents. They rarely fought species that used precision over power, because few species were both weak enough to need such tactics and brave enough to try them. 4 minutes had passed. For a Corinthian match, this was already remarkably long. Vector was breathing heavily, not from exhaustion, but from stress. This wasn't how fights were supposed to go. The human should have been broken by now. He decided to end it with overwhelming force. No more measured attacks, no more testing her defenses. He would use his full strength and finish this. Vector charged with everything he had, both hands reaching to grapple Maya in a crushing hold. If he caught her, the fight would be over. His mass and strength were simply too much. But Maya had been waiting for this. She had pushed him, frustrated him, studied him, all to provoke exactly this kind of desperate attack. When you made an opponent angry, they became predictable. At the last second, Maya dropped flat to the sand, letting Vector's momentum carry him over her. As his legs passed above, she kicked upward into the back of his knee. Not hard, but at precisely the right angle to buckle it. The Corinthian stumbled, his charge becoming an uncontrolled tumble. Maya was up instantly, ignoring the screaming pain in her ribs. As Vector rolled to regain his feet, she was there, kicking sand directly into his face. The fine grains got past his nictitating membrane, irritating his eyes. He blinked reflexively, momentarily blinded. That was when Maya struck with everything she had. She targeted his elbow joint with a stomp, then his knee, then the soft tissue at his throat, again. None of the strikes were powerful enough to cause serious injury through his scales, but hitting the same vulnerable spots repeatedly had a cumulative effect. Pain was new to Vector. In his culture, matches ended before anyone experienced real discomfort. But Maya had grown up hearing stories of human athletes who played through injuries, soldiers who fought despite wounds, explorers who survived against impossible odds. Her species had learned that pain was just sensation, injury was just a problem, and neither one meant you had to stop. Medical status, Maya said between strikes, her voice clinical despite her gasping breaths. Opponent showing reduced reaction time. Vision compromised. Compensatory movements indicate stress on previously targeted joints. Stop talking! Vector swung wildly, his composure cracking. The blow caught Maya in the shoulder, the same one already injured. Something in her joint gave way with a sickening pop, and her left arm went partially numb. She stumbled back, cradling the injured limb. The crowd was in an uproar now. This wasn't educational. This was brutal. Both fighters were injured, both bloodied, and neither would yield. 7 minutes had passed, the longest educational demonstration in Academy history. Maya forced herself forward, despite having only one functional arm and broken ribs that made every breath agony. Her face was pale from blood loss and pain, but her eyes were still focused, still analytical. Vector watched her come, and for the first time in his life, he felt something he had never experienced in combat before. Not respect, not even fear exactly. Something worse. Doubt. The human should be finished. By every logical measure, she was defeated. But she kept coming, kept analyzing, kept fighting with a cold determination that had nothing to do with anger or pride, and everything to do with simple refusal to stop. "Why won't you yield?" Vector asked, genuine confusion in his voice. Maya's answer was quiet, but clear. "Because humans don't know how." She came at him again, one-armed, injured, but still moving with purpose. Vector raised his hands to defend, and in that moment of hesitation, he made a mistake. Maya feinted high, and when he moved to block, she went low, sweeping his legs. He fell hard, the impact driving air from his lungs. Before he could rise, Maya was on his back, her one good arm wrapping around his throat in a chokehold, her legs hooking under his arms to control his position. It was a submission hold from human martial arts, something Corinthian combat training never covered. Vector thrashed, his greater strength obvious, but Maya had leverage and position. She squeezed with everything she had left. "You can yield with honor," Maya whispered in his ear, her voice strained but steady. "You fought well, warrior. No one will question your courage. But I will not stop until one of us cannot continue. And humans are very, very good at not stopping." Vector felt his air supply constricting. He could probably break the hold with enough force, but it would require violence that might seriously injure or kill the human. And she was right. He had fought well. There was no shame in acknowledging a draw against an opponent this stubborn. But more than that, he realized something profound. Strength wasn't everything. This human had taught him that lesson the hard way. His hand tapped the sand 3 times, the universal signal for submission. "Yield," the referee announced, its voice barely audible over the stunned silence that had fallen across the arena. "Student Chen of Earth is victorious." Maya immediately released the hold and rolled away. Vector lay on the sand for a moment, breathing hard, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. Then, slowly, Maya extended her one good hand toward him, an offering to help him up. The arena remained silent for a long moment, thousands of alien beings processing what they had just witnessed. Then, starting from the human section, a sound began to build. Applause. Cheering. It spread through the crowd as species after species recognized what had happened. A human, small and fragile by galactic standards, had defeated a Corinthian warrior. Vector stared at Maya's extended hand. In his culture, helping a defeated opponent to their feet was a gesture reserved for equals, for those who had earned respect through combat. He reached up slowly and took her hand. Even injured, his grip was strong, but he was careful not to hurt her further. As they stood together, the crowd's noise reached deafening levels. Maya swayed slightly, her injuries catching up with her, now that the adrenaline was fading. Vector steadied her with a hand on her good shoulder. "I do not understand," he said quietly, his voice lost in the crowd's roar. "How did you do this?" "I'll explain," Maya replied through gritted teeth, "after the medical team fixes my shoulder." The arena's emergency medical staff rushed onto the sand, surrounding both fighters. Maya's fellow humans vaulted the barrier to reach her, Sarah arriving first to support her friend before she collapsed. "You insane, beautiful genius," Sarah laughed, through tears. "You actually did it." "Did I?" Maya's vision was starting to blur around the edges. "I can't really feel my arm, and I think I'm about to pass out." "You won. You beat a Corinthian in single combat. The whole galaxy watched." Maya managed a weak smile before consciousness slipped away. She woke up 6 hours later in the station's medical center, her body wrapped in regenerative bandages. The technology was far beyond Earth's medical science, capable of healing broken bones and torn tissue in days rather than months. Her shoulder was already immobilized in a field of blue light that hummed softly as it worked to repair the damage. A doctor, a species she didn't recognize, checked the monitors beside her bed. "Ah, you're awake. Good. You're quite fortunate." 3 cracked ribs, dislocated shoulder, various lacerations, significant bruising, and mild concussion. 2 weeks of regenerative treatment and you'll be fully recovered. What about Vector? The Corinthian student? Minor injuries only. Some bruising, irritated eyes from the sand, stressed joints where you targeted his armor gaps. He was released hours ago. The doctor's expression was unreadable, but its tone was curious. "I've treated combat injuries for many species, but I've never seen a human fight like that. Your pain tolerance is remarkable." "We evolved with it," Maya said. "On Earth, showing pain made you prey." Over the next week, as Maya recovered, the station transformed around her. The fight had been broadcast throughout the Galactic Collective, and reaction was swift and profound. Military academies across dozens of worlds requested copies of the footage for tactical analysis. The concept of asymmetric combat, of using intelligence and endurance against superior physical force, suddenly became a topic of intense academic interest. Several species began requesting human instructors for their combat training programs. If one injured human student could defeat a Corinthian warrior through tactical thinking and refusal to quit, what could a trained human military force accomplish? The betting houses that had offered 500-to-1 odds against Maya lost massive amounts of credits. Several went bankrupt. One posted a public message: "Never bet against a species too stubborn to know when they're beaten." Earth's diplomatic corps was flooded with communication requests. Trade negotiations that had stalled for months suddenly reopened. Species that had viewed humanity as weak clients now approached them as potential partners. The application for full collective membership, previously delayed indefinitely, was fast-tracked for immediate review. In the human dormitory common room, Maya's fellow students threw an impromptu celebration when she was released from medical care. Her arm was still in a regenerative sling, but she could move without pain for the first time in days. "You're famous," Marcus announced, showing her his datapad. "There are news articles about you in 17 languages, analysis pieces, combat breakdowns. Someone made a tactical simulation program based on your fighting style." "Someone also made fan art," Jamal added with a grin. You've got quite the following among species that appreciate underdog victories. Maya scrolled through the headlines, feeling surreal. Humanity's champion. The Deathworlder's gambit. Human defeats Corinthian through superior tactics. It was overwhelming. A chime at the door interrupted the celebration. Sarah answered it, then stepped back in surprise. Maya, you have a visitor. Vector stood in the doorway, looking uncomfortable in the human-sized corridor. He had to duck his head to fit through the frame. The room fell silent. I hope I am not intruding, the Corinthian said formally. I wanted to speak with you, if you are willing. Maya nodded, and the other students quietly left the room, giving them privacy. Vector sat carefully on a reinforced chair designed for larger species, his clawed hands folded in his lap. I owe you an apology, he began without preamble. I challenged you out of pride and assumption. I believed that because my species was physically superior, victory was assured. You taught me otherwise. The challenge was legal and fair. You fought with honor. Perhaps, but I fought with arrogance. Vector met her eyes. I have spent the past week reviewing the fight recordings and studying human combat philosophy. I want to understand how you defeated me. Not just the techniques, but the mindset. How you kept fighting when any sensible being would have yielded. Maya thought about how to explain it. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We didn't have claws or armor or great strength. What we had was endurance and the ability to think while exhausted, injured, and afraid. Our ancestors survived by being too stubborn to die when everything on our planet wanted to kill us. That stubbornness is built into our psychology now. But you were in pain. Serious pain, I saw it in your face. Pain is just information. It tells you something is damaged, but it doesn't mean you have to stop. Humans learned to process pain and keep functioning because stopping meant death. Maya shifted in her chair, careful of her healing shoulder. And I knew that if I quit, it would reflect badly on my entire species. That gave me something to fight for, beyond myself. Vector was quiet for a long moment. Among my people, I am considered a skilled warrior. I have won many matches, earned many honors. But none of those victories taught me as much as this defeat. Would you be willing to teach me more about human combat philosophy? I wish to learn from you. Maya smiled. Only if you teach me proper Corinthian technique. I won because you weren't expecting my tactics. But if we fought again with you prepared, the outcome might be different. I could learn from you too. A mutual exchange of knowledge. Vector's mouth opened in what might have been a smile. Perhaps we can show the galaxy that different species have different strengths, and wisdom comes from understanding them all. Over the following weeks, something unexpected developed. Maya and Vector began training together, sharing techniques and philosophies. Other students, both human and alien, asked to join. Soon, they had regular classes where multiple species learned from each other. The Academy administration officially recognized these sessions as a new interdisciplinary program, Comparative Combat Studies. It became one of the most popular courses on the station. 3 months after the fight, Maya walked into her xenobiology class to find the usual crowd of attentive students. Professor Thelrax's crystals pulsed in greeting. Ah, Student Chen. Perfect timing. We were just discussing the statement that began your famous demonstration. Would you like to continue that conversation about whether superior strength always defeats inferior opponents? Every student in the hall turned to look at Maya expectantly. She made her way to her seat, her arm fully healed now, moving with the confidence of someone who had proven herself. I don't think I need to continue that discussion, Professor, Maya said calmly. The practical demonstration was sufficient. The class erupted in sounds that were laughter in a dozen different species. Even Vector, sitting in his usual back row seat, made the rumbling sound that Corinthians use to express amusement. Professor Thelrax's crystals swirled in patterns that suggested satisfaction. Indeed it was, Student Shen. Indeed it was. Let this be a lesson to all of you. In combat, as in science, assumptions are dangerous. Every species brings unique advantages to any conflict. Physical strength is merely one variable among many. As the lecture continued, Maya noticed something that made her smile. Scattered throughout the hall were recruitment posters that had appeared over the past weeks. They showed beings of various species and bore the same message in multiple languages. Humanity, Earth's diplomatic corps. When persistence meets intelligence, impossible becomes possible. Consider a career representing the species that doesn't know when to quit. After class, Maya met her fellow human students for lunch in the station's observation deck. Through the transparent aluminum, Earth was visible in the distance, a small blue dot among the stars. Got a message from the diplomatic corps this morning, Sarah said, pulling up her datapad. Earth's full membership application was approved. We're officially part of the Galactic Collective now. Marcus raised his beverage container in a toast. To Maya, who punched humanity's way into the big leagues. Literally. That's not what happened, Maya protested, but she was smiling. Close enough. Jamal clinked his container against Marcus's. You showed them we belong here, that we're not just soft deathworlders who got lucky with technology. We're survivors who know how to adapt and overcome. Maya looked out at Earth, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. One fight, 8.5 minutes long, had changed how an entire galaxy viewed humanity. Not because she had won, exactly, but because she had demonstrated something fundamental about her species. Humans didn't win through superior strength or natural advantages. They won through a refusal to accept defeat, through tactical thinking under pressure, and through the stubborn conviction that any problem could be solved if you were willing to endure enough to find the solution. That was humanity's real strength, not their technology, or their cleverness, or their endurance, though all those mattered. Their real strength was the simple fact that they never learned when to quit. Maya turned back to her friends, her fellow representatives of Earth in the greater galaxy. So what's next? She asked. Next, Sarah grinned. Next we show them what else humans can do. We've got their attention now. Let's make sure they never forget us. The galaxy had learned an important lesson that day in the arena. Humanity had learned one too. They belonged here, among the stars, and nobody was going to tell them otherwise.